This is my salute of Super Street Fighter 4, which was released 2 years after the very first Street Fighter 4 video game. Just like with Mortal Kombat vs. DC, you don't know how excited I was. You don't know how excited I was to finally see, back in 2008, to finally see the Street Fighters, Ryu, King, Gaio, Chun-Li, Zangief, Cody, Guy, all those characters, Bison, all those characters, Sagat, Bison, all those characters in a brand new canon video game. There have been various revisions of Street Fighter 2 and various crossover video games like Capcom vs. Capcom vs. Marvel, SNK, and Capcom Fighting Game Evolution, but there had not been a canon Street Fighter, a story-wise canon Street Fighter game since Street Fighter 3. Since Street Fighter 3, and they finally made another Street Fighter game, and when I saw this game, that made me immediately want a 7th generation console. Of course, I took a while to get a 7th generation console because I didn't think it'd ever work on my TV. But this game right here, Mortal Kombat vs. DC and Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit, made me want a 7th generation a 7th generation console. A 7th generation console. Oh man, the graphics, of course, the gameplay was the same. That's probably the only disappointment from this game, was that when I was researching this game on Wikipedia, Capcom promised brand new gameplay and a more realistic fighting engine. The fighting engine is the same as Street Fighter 3 with elements of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo in the Alpha series. There's nothing new here, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The only thing new is the characters gain an Ultra move. They gain one Ultra move, which I can't pull off. An Ultra move to accommodate their signature and special maneuvers. And one of the cool things I love about this game is that this game has voice acting. This game has actual voice acting, actual English style voice acting. The characters during the rivalry mode, when the characters encounter their rival, when they're fighting each other, they actually talk back to each other. They actually talk back to each other, and when they win, they actually say something in English. They actually talk and say a full sentence instead of saying something in Japanese or one English phrase all over again. Or, of course, in the Alpha series, they use text at the bottom to articulate what the characters were saying. Here, they still use the text, but you can actually hear the characters talking. You can actually hear the characters talking, and then when you beat the game, another cool thing, you beat the game, you get a cool anime style ending. And before the game, when you pick your character for arcade mode, you get a cool anime style opening showing you what this character's story is and what his motivation is for entering the tournament. Speaking of the story mode is awesome. It is set in between Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 3, even though it's called Street Fighter 4, and the main antagonist of the video game, Seth, leader of the mysterious SIN organization, sets up a tournament, and while many people have their own reasons for entering the tournament, the plot mostly concerns Ryu. But there's lots of characters here. Of course, you got the returning characters: Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Guile, Zangief, Honda, Blanca, Fei Long, T-Hawk, Cammy, DJ, Sagat, Vega, Balrog, Bison, Akuma, and Cody, Guy, and some new characters like some weird cartoonish grappler guy named Hakim, something like that, who I actually mistake for Hager, a wrestling gimmick for Mike Hager from the Final Fight games, but it wasn't him, it was someone else. else? Who else? Oh yes, Abel, the Sambo fighter. Abel, the Sambo MMA fighter. Um, El Forte, my least favorite character. I keep forgetting there's this weird girl who does Taekwondo. I think her name is Yuri Yuki, something like that. I keep forgetting her name. Then of course CP Viper, who I also like CP Viper, and Rufus, who reminds me of the characters from he has a fighting style similar to Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star with that hyper fighting stuff, and then of course other returning characters I forgot. You got Aiden, you got Yan and Yang, and of course Sakura and Don Hibiki. So large and colorful cast of characters. Then there's an update to this game called Ultra Street Fighter 4, which added 4 more characters and more stages, but I'll talk about that in the future. Um, this game right here, yeah. The only problem I have with this game, besides Capcom lying about the gameplay, first problem I have the second problem I have with this game is that once again, there's not a lot of game modes. There's just an arcade mode, a versus mode, practice mode, a practice mode, and an online mode. Not much to do in this game. Not really much to do in this game after you've locked all of the achievements, and when older video games like Street Fighter Alpha 3 had more game modes, and that was um that was almost um that was almost 16 years ago. And they had more modes and stuff like that. So that, and then the third problem I have with them is that Capcom promised that if this game sold well, which it did, they would make Street Fighter 5. Instead, they made 3 versions of the same game. Supposedly fixing the problems. They made 2 versions of the same game that supposedly fixed the problems that existed in the original, when they should have first off included all the stuff in one game, included all the characters, all the extras in one game. And if that's so well, which it did, make Street Fighter 5. They're finally making Street Fighter 5 now, and it's the same crap as we played years ago, just with a different story and yeah, just a different story. It's the same graphics as this. Only they look more like their Street Fighter 3 counterparts instead of Street Fighter 2. So that's the only problem I have, and I'll be ranting on Street Fighter 5 later. But that's the only problem I have with this video game. That's the only problem I have with this video game. But this right here is one of the best video games of all time. When I turned this video game on my Xbox 360, the graphics, man, the graphics, man, some of the best graphics I have ever seen. They look way better on my television than they do when I was watching it on the computer, man. One of the best video games, still one of the best video games of all time, and a completely, somewhat, I won't call it underrated because it was popular, but this game is somewhat underrated because it gets lots of negative bashing from nostalgics who like the older Street Fighters, when this game took what made those Street Fighter games great and just multiplied by adding other stuff. So like I said, awesome video game. So awesome that whenever I do get a PlayStation 4 or 360, I'm gonna get the update to this Ultra Street Fighter 4. Ultra Street Fighter 4, just to relive and do all the achievements and stuff again, and get all the extras and stuff, because this game was that awesome that I don't mind buying another version of it and playing again, kind of like Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter Alpha back in the day. Alright, Doug out.